Kyle Foster stared at the blinking console screen, watching another 12 hours of absolutely nothing scroll past. The Deep Space Relay Station beacon 7 wasn't supposed to be exciting. It was a glorified mailbox floating in the void, routing messages between Earth and the outer colonies. Most days, Kyle wondered if his engineering degree had been worth the debt. "I'm telling you, she won't even see it," Derek said, leaning back in his chair with his boots on the console. "Darg. The Queen of Earth probably gets 10,000 messages a day. It'll get filtered by some AI before it even reaches her office." Kyle glanced at the communication terminal. Queen Amara Lynn's public contact information sat right there in the diplomatic directory, available to any human citizen. Technically legal to use, completely insane to actually try. 50 credits says you won't do it, Derek added. 50 credits says I will, Kyle shot back. His fingers were already moving across the keyboard before his brain could stop them. He typed quickly, something stupid and flirty about how the Queen's last speech had made his heart race faster than a plasma leak. He added a winking emoji. Hit send. The message disappeared into the void. "You're an idiot," Derek laughed. "When you get court-martialed, I'm keeping your coffee maker." Kyle grinned, already forgetting about it. The message would vanish into some spam folder, and that would be the end of it. He went back to monitoring the relay systems, checking radiation levels and power fluctuations. Another shift on the galaxy's most boring assignment. His console pinged. Kyle blinked. A response. Already. From an official Earth diplomatic channel, he opened it with shaking hands. Coordinates received, arriving in 3 days. AL. Derek's boots hit the floor. "What does that say?" "I think," Kyle whispered, "I just made a huge mistake." The next 3 days were the longest of Kyle's life. He told Derek to keep his mouth shut, but word spread anyway. The 12-person crew of Beacon 7 buzzed with rumors. Some thought it was a prank. Others thought Kyle had actually triggered some kind of security protocol. The station's commander, an older woman named Captain Okoye, called Kyle into her office twice to ask what exactly he'd sent. "Just a joke, ma'am," Kyle insisted. "A stupid joke." "Stupid is right," Okoye muttered. "If this causes an incident with the Galactic Council observers, it's coming out of your paycheck." Beacon 7 wasn't just a human station. It sat at a junction point between human space and territories controlled by the Vryn Collective and the Talus Republic. 3 alien observers lived on board permanently, monitoring communications to ensure no faction was spying on the others. They were already asking questions. On the 3rd day, the sensors screamed. "FTL signature detected," the computer announced. "Ship class, Royal Diplomatic Vessel, origin, Earth." Kyle's stomach dropped into his boots. The flagship materialized out of faster-than-light travel like a knife cutting through reality. It was enormous, sleek white hull gleaming with Earth's insignia. Escort fighters peeled off in formation, establishing a perimeter around the station. The alien observers immediately began broadcasting panicked messages to their homeworlds. "Beacon 7, this is the ERS Valiant," a crisp voice said over the comms. "Requesting docking clearance for Her Majesty Queen Amara Lynn." Captain Okoye's face had gone pale. She looked at Kyle like he'd just declared war on the galaxy. "Clearance granted," she managed. "Docking Bay 2. Kyle stood in the bay with the rest of the crew, wearing his cleanest uniform and trying not to throw up. The airlock cycled open with a hiss. 2 royal guards stepped through first, scanning the area with professional efficiency. Then she appeared. Queen Amara Lynn was smaller than she looked in broadcasts, but she carried herself like she owned the station. She wore a simple diplomatic suit, dark blue with minimal decorations. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun. Her eyes swept across the assembled crew and locked onto Kyle with laser precision. "Kyle Foster," she said, not a question. "Yes, Your Majesty," Kyle's voice cracked. "Walk with me." It wasn't a request. Kyle fell into step beside her as she moved through the station corridors. The guards followed at a discreet distance. Captain Okoye tried to join them, but Amara waved her off. "I assume you're wondering why I'm here," Amara said. "The thought crossed my mind, ma'am. Your message was received by my personal communication filter. I read it myself." She glanced at him. It was charming in a clumsy sort of way. Kyle wanted to die. But I didn't come here because of your message, Amara continued.
I came here because Beacon 7 sits at one of the most strategically important positions in human space, and I needed an excuse to inspect it personally without alerting certain parties.
Kyle's brain stuttered. I don't understand. Amara stopped walking. They were in an observation deck overlooking the station's relay arrays. She pointed at the display showing local space. For the past 6 months, we've been tracking unusual communication patterns, short-burst transmissions that shouldn't exist. They're coming from somewhere near the station and routing through dead zones in your relay coverage. Someone is using those blind spots to coordinate fleet movements. The Kresh Dominion, Kyle said slowly. The Kresh were an aggressive empire that had been pushing against human borders for years. Humanity had held them off, but barely. Exactly. We believe they're planning a major offensive, but we couldn't justify sending a royal inspection without evidence. The Galactic Council would see it as warmongering. Amara smiled slightly. Then you sent me a message through official channels. That gave me the perfect excuse. A citizen contacted the Queen directly. Protocol requires I respond personally to maintain diplomatic transparency. Kyle's head was spinning. So my joke actually helped? Your joke might save lives, Amara said. Now show me your relay systems. I want to see those blind spots up close. They spent the next 4 hours going through the station's technical specifications. Kyle explained how the relay arrays worked, where the coverage gaps existed, and why they'd never been fixed. Budget constraints, mostly. The station had been running on minimal crew for years. Amara listened carefully, asking sharp questions that proved she understood the technology better than Kyle expected. She'd done her homework. Here, Kyle said, pointing at a schematic. This junction has been glitchy for months. We keep finding weird packet losses in the data stream, but diagnostics come back clean. Amara leaned closer. Show me the raw logs. Kyle pulled them up. Thousands of lines of code scrolled past. Amara's eyes narrowed. There, she said, pointing, that timestamp. What happened at 14:33 station time yesterday? Kyle checked. Nothing. Routine system check. Then why is there a 5-second gap in the logging? Kyle felt cold. There shouldn't be. They dug deeper. The more they looked, the worse it got. Someone had been carefully editing the logs, hiding evidence of unauthorized transmissions. The modifications were subtle, expertly done. This wasn't a glitch. It was sabotage. We need to find who did this, Amara said quietly. Right now. They brought Captain Okoye and the station's chief engineer into a secure room. Guile explained what they'd found. Okoye's expression turned grim. Only a few people have access to those systems, she said. The engineering team and the council observers. The observers, Amara said. Which species? 1 Vrin, 1 Talus, 1 Helion. Amara's jaw tightened. The Helion Confederacy has been neutral in every conflict for 2 centuries. But they're also the only faction close enough to Kresh space to broker deals. Who's your Helion observer? Counselor Venn? He's been here for 3 years. Quiet guy. Never causes trouble. Find him, Amara ordered. Now. They searched the station. Counselor Venn wasn't in his quarters. He wasn't in the observation deck or the mess hall. He'd vanished. Then the alarms started screaming. Lockdown initiated, the computer announced. All airlocks sealed. Life support reduced to minimum levels. Kyle's console lit up with errors. Someone had triggered the station's emergency protocols remotely. They were trapped. Then, Okoye snarled. He's locked us in. Amara pulled a small communicator from her jacket. Valiant, this is the Queen. We have a hostile situation. Prepare for immediate extraction. The response came back garbled with static. Majesty. Cannot. Interference. Multiple contacts. Through the observation window, Kyle saw lights in the distance. Ships dropping out of FTL. Dozens of them. Kresh warships. Angular and aggressive. Moving into attack formation around the station. They were waiting, Amara said softly. Then called them the moment I arrived. They moved up their timeline. The station shook as weapons fire impacted the shields. The Kresh weren't here to negotiate. Captain Okoye grabbed the intercom. All hands, battle stations, engineering, get those shields to maximum. Security find Counselor Ven. Amara turned to Kyle. Your maintenance crew, how many? 4, including me. Get them to the weapons bay. We're going to need every person we have. Your Majesty, we don't have weapons, Kyle said. This is a relay station. Amara's smile was sharp and dangerous. It was the smile of someone who'd been a soldier before she'd been a queen. Then we're going to make some. Kyle had never seen anyone move like Queen Amara Lynn. She didn't just give orders. She worked alongside them, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. She'd been a fleet commander before taking the throne, and it showed. Plasma cutters can be weaponized, she said. Stripping panels off a maintenance bot, recalibrate the magnetic containment fields, turn them into short-range pulse cannons. Derek stared. That's insane! That's engineering, Amara shot back. Move! They worked frantically while the station shook under Kresh bombardment. The shields were holding, but barely. The Valiant and its escorts were engaged in a desperate fight outside, outnumbered 3-1. Kyle's team pulled apart every piece of equipment they could find. Welding torches became thermal lances. Cargo drones were rigged with explosive fuel cells. It was improvised chaos, but it was something. They're targeting the docking bay, Okoye reported over comms. Trying to board us. Let them come, Amara said. She hefted one of the improvised pulse cannons. We'll give them a greeting they won't forget. The Kresh hit the airlock with a breaching charge. The door blew inward and armored soldiers poured through. They were met with a wall of superheated plasma and improvised explosives. The first wave went down screaming. Kyle fired his converted plasma cutter, the recoil nearly knocking him off his feet. The weapon shrieked and overheated in his hands, but it punched through Kresh armor like tissue paper. Fall back to checkpoint 2. Amara commanded. She moved like water, covering angles and calling targets with military precision. Funnel them into the corridor. They retreated in good order, leaving behind rigged cargo containers. When the Kresh advanced, Derek triggered the explosives remotely. The blast shook the entire section. But more kept coming. We can't hold forever, Captain Okoye said. She had a cut across her forehead, bleeding freely. Where are our reinforcements? 12 minutes out? Amara replied. She was breathing hard but steady. We hold for 12 minutes. They'll tear through us in 5, Derek said. Amara checked her weapon. Then we make them work for every second. Kyle's mind was racing. There had to be something they could do, some advantage they hadn't seen. He thought about the station's systems, the relay arrays, the power grid. The communications array, he said suddenly. It's powered by a fusion reactor. If we overload it, Amara understood immediately. How big an explosion? Big enough to cripple every ship within 200 meters, but we'd have to do it manually. The safety locks can't be overridden remotely. Where's the reactor? Section 7. Right where the Kresh are pushing hardest. Amara didn't hesitate. I'll go. Your Majesty, you can't, Okoye protested. If something happens to you, if we don't stop them here, millions die. Amara cut her off. Kyle, you're with me. Everyone else hold this position. When you see the reactor go critical, get to the escape pods. That's an order. They moved through the station's maintenance shafts, crawling through cramped spaces while battle raged above. Kyle led the way, navigating by memory. Amara followed without complaint, her royal dignity abandoned in favor of survival. They reached Section 7 through a service hatch. The reactor room was massive, filled with the hum of contained fusion, and it was guarded by 4 Kresh soldiers. Amara held up 3 fingers. 2, 1. They burst through together. Kyle fired his plasma cutter wildly, more hoping to distract than hit anything. Amara moved with lethal precision, her pulse cannon taking down 2 soldiers before they could react. The third got a shot off that scorched the wall near Kyle's head. Amara put him down with a point-blank blast. The 4th soldier charged. Amara dropped her weapon and met him head-on, using his momentum to throw him into the reactor housing. He hit hard and didn't get up. Not bad for a queen, Kyle gasped. I wasn't always a queen, Amara replied. She was already at the reactor controls, her fingers flying. Start pulling the safety interlocks, all of them. Kyle worked frantically. Warning! Klaxons began to wail. The reactor core's temperature climbed steadily. How long until critical? Amara asked. 3 minutes. Maybe 4. We need to buy more time. Keep working. She positioned herself at the door, weapon ready. More Kresh appeared, drawn by the alarms. Amara held them off, firing in controlled bursts, making every shot count. Kyle's hand shook as he disabled the final safety. The reactor was screaming now, barely contained. That's it! We need to go. Run, Amara ordered. I'm right behind you. They sprinted through the corridors. Behind them, the reactor's whine reached a fever pitch. Kyle dove into a reinforced storage room just as the world turned white. The explosion tore through Section 7 like the fist of an angry god. The shockwave rippled outward, slamming into the crushed ships clustered around the station. Shields failed. Hulls buckled. 3 ships were destroyed outright. The others tumbled away, dead in space. When Kyle's hearing returned, he found Amara lying beside him, covered in dust, but alive. She was laughing. What's funny? He managed. I haven't done anything like that in 10 years, she said. I almost forgot what it felt like. The all clear sounded over the station's speakers. Captain Okoye's voice came through, cracking with emotion. Kresh fleet is retreating. Human reinforcements have arrived. We're secure. They made their way back to the command center. The station was a wreck, but it was intact. The crew had survived. Through the windows, Kyle could see Earth fleet ships moving into formation, their weapons trained on the fleeing Kresh. Counselor Venn was found hiding in a cargo pod, trying to slip away in the chaos. He was taken into custody without a fight. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The evidence of Venn's treachery was overwhelming. The Helian Confederacy issued a formal apology and recalled all their observers. The Vryn and Talos representatives personally thanked Queen Amara for uncovering the plot. More importantly, they saw what humanity was capable of when threatened. They'd watched a maintenance crew and a Queen turn a relay station into a fortress. They'd seen improvised weapons destroy a Kresh assault force. The message was clear. Humanity didn't back down. 3 days later, the Galactic Council formally requested a military alliance with Earth. The terms were generous. Humanity would gain access to advanced technology and new trade routes. In exchange, Earth would provide strategic defense coordination for the entire sector. Kyle stood in the rebuilt observation deck watching reconstruction drones repair the damage. Queen Amara found him there. I've been thinking about your message, she said. Kyle winced. Your Majesty, I really am sorry about that. Don't be. It gave me the opening I needed. Sometimes the best strategies come from unexpected places. She handed him a datapad. This is an official offer. Position in the Royal Security Division. You'd be working directly with my strategic team. Kyle stared at the pad. You're serious? Your quick thinking with the reactor saved lives. You kept your head under fire. Those are the kind of people I need around me. She smiled. Besides, you already know how to contact me. Kyle laughed despite himself. I promise all future messages will be through proper channels. See that they are. Amara turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Kyle, Derek owes you 50 credits. Make sure you collect. She walked away, leaving Kyle alone with a decision that would change his life. He looked out at the stars, at the fleet ships patrolling the newly secured space, at the future opening up before him. He thought about the joke message that had started everything. About how one stupid decision had cascaded into something that mattered. About how humanity had proven itself to the galaxy once again, not through overwhelming force, but through courage, ingenuity, and the refusal to quit. Kyle pulled out his personal communicator and sent a message to Derek. I'm taking the job. You can keep the coffee maker. I'm getting a better one. The response came back immediately. You magnificent bastard. Kyle smiled. The galaxy had just gotten a lot more interesting, and for once, humanity was writing the rules. All because someone had dared to send a message to a queen, and she'd had the audacity to answer in person. In the end, that was the most human thing of all. When the galaxy expected diplomacy, they got action. When it expected surrender, they got defiance. And when it expected a queen to stay safely in her palace, she showed up on a damaged relay station with improvised weapons and a smile that promised there was more where that came from. Humanity wasn't the strongest species in the galaxy. They weren't the oldest or the wisest. But they were the ones who turned maintenance equipment into weapons, who made jokes in the face of danger, and who never, ever stopped fighting. The Kresh Dominion would learn that lesson the hard way, and the rest of the galaxy was watching, taking notes, and reconsidering their assumptions about the clever apes from Earth, who refused to know when they were beaten. Kyle Foster looked out at the stars and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. The boring days on Beacon 7 were over. Whatever came next would be dangerous, unpredictable, and probably insane. He couldn't wait.